In This Ring.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to In This Ring. Joe Pisapia, Tim Heaney, and Tim's going to step away for a second, but our guest is wrestling, family royalty, and I am really, really pleased that he took the time out to talk with us. Unfortunately, he's dealing with an injury right now, which absolutely sucks. So he's got extra time on his hands, and it's questionable whether or not he chose to spend it correctly, hanging out with us and talking wrestling, but we're grateful that he did. He's Brian Pillman Jr. He's out there in the indie scene right now. He's had a really good, strong debut out there. Brian, thanks so much for joining us on the show today, my brother.
Hey, Nate, thanks for having me, baby. It's always a pleasure to get on here and talk about wrestling and how things are going and stuff.
Look, thanks to, we live in such a different era now, and, thanks to YouTube and all these things, I've been able to watch your stuff. And, I got to say, man, the energy that you're bringing out there, I feel like you're one of these dudes that, maybe it is true, maybe it is in the blood, but every time I feel like I've seen you out there, it's like the energy you bring, it's more comfortable every single time out there. And I know right now it's kind of a bummer for you because I'm sure you probably felt the same way, but right now tell everybody what's going on there. You told me the story before we came on today. Tell us about the injury and what's happening right now for you.
Yeah, so, I was about 30 matches into my career and, just getting prepared for New Orleans weekend. It was booked down at spring break, Joey Janela's spring break too. And I actually wasn't booked the weekend prior to that, so I would have had a nice little rest weekend going into New Orleans. But I thought, I'll go to training still and just see what I can learn. I actually had a really good practice. I learned a bunch of different moves and transitions that I was working on. So it's feeling really good about myself, with just coming off a high from the CrossFit. You get that runner's high. And, it happened so fast. I hyperextended my left knee and tore about 75% of my PCL, and I tore up my meniscus a little bit. So instead of just jumping back in and putting more stress on that meniscus, I went ahead and got the surgery. Had I not gotten the surgery, I might have been back in 3 months. But with the doctors and everybody telling me it's my best for the future, for the long run, it's best bet to get surgery on that meniscus and clean that thing up. And then the rest of it's just going to be rehabbing my quads and getting my quads back together, getting them strong again. And that, all in all, it's going to take about 6 months. Hopefully come back a little bit sooner. All depends on how strong I can get my quad and everything. So just been doing my physical therapy, doing my rehab just every day, and so.
Well, and that's the whole thing, man. It's and what you tend to do at the time. It number one, it's like it keeps you and realizes, hey, wait, I really do love this. When you're not doing it, I think that's when you start to realize that.
Oh yeah, you start to appreciate it a lot more. Not many people in the business get a lot of the things that I've gotten. Starting off, I've been very privileged to have a lot of bookings and a lot of attention and hype, and it's like. My first match, it was almost like it was all over every wrestling website ever,
Do you feel pressure about that, Brian? Do you in a way, it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because everybody wants exposure, but at the same time, it's like the exposure might come for you at points where it's not that, I don't want to say not fair, but really, for anybody who's, 30 matches into their career, is there an undue pressure that's put on you because of the last name and because of all of that? And do you actually like that pressure? Is that something you feel like it's actually a benefit?
I thought that at first, and it was a lot, and I kept being so critical. I'd come through the curtain, like beating myself up over a couple little things, and everybody else be like, oh, no, great match and all that. And it's just like, you never know if they're just blowing smoke up your ass or if they really mean it. Well, it's hard. It's hard to really ever tell if you ever did have a good match when you're in those shoes. And it's just like, did I really have one, or are people just saying that? So it's like, it's really hard to judge. I just have to be my own worst critic, and I always was a really harsh critic on myself. But now that I thought the exposure, I don't want to wrestle at these higher level indies because then everybody will see it, you know what I mean? Or I'll be criticized by their smart fans. But I quickly realized once I started wrestling and just getting into my own and not letting it get to me that it doesn't matter. You know, the pressure's all bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially now that I've kind of had the rug pulled out from underneath me with this injury. I'm not wasting any more time when I get back. I'm not trying to hide. I'm going to get booked everywhere I can, you know, because you really only got one body and one chance to do this. And I was kind of, you know, baby footing it a little bit, like, oh, I don't want to be seen here. I don't want to be seen there. It's like, no, fuck all that, man. Like, as soon as I get back, I'm taking every booking I can get. I don't give a shit if I don't put on as good a match as someone that's been in the business for 9-10 years. It's like, okay, but you know what? I've got a lot of fire, got a lot of intensity, and I'm a little bit over with my name. So, you know, if I can bring some smiles to the faces in the crowds and have some sense of ring presence, then I think it's going to be a good old time. And people are going to realize that everywhere I go, the draw's been up just based on the curiosity of, you know, the young star, but breaking into the business. Everywhere I go, the draw's up. So it's only going to help everybody and benefit everybody as soon as I get back into it.
Well, and you know what? I mean, like you said, you know, in the top of the interview, there is something to be said about it's in the blood, you know, like, you know, it's in the blood of a Dwayne Johnson. It's in the blood of these second generation or even third generation people in the business. And it's one of these family businesses. And I know you were a little later to the business. You were an athlete and you kind of came to it later. Take us through that real quick. You know, just how did that end up coming about where you ended up turning over and saying, you know what, I'm going to decide to give this a shot, whereas really, you know, in your youth, it really wasn't quite a thing for you.
Yeah, my youth was more or less kind of demonized, you know, oh, you know, it killed your father. And then a lot of the kids I grew up with and played football with, they're like, oh, you know, it's fake, it's lame, you know. So it's like,
yeah, put them on the mat to tell me it's fake. That's what you know, man, that's what I always tell people because I teach combat and stuff. I'm like, you know, you want to talk and like sword fighting and stuff. You want to tell me it's fake. You see the bruises and the bump, you see the injuries and stuff like that. We put you on there and you tell me how fake this stuff is. But you don't realize the athleticism, you know, what goes in there and stuff like that. Go ahead.
And I've learned, the amount I've learned is it's unreal. And it's just amazing how much depth that this art has, you know, when you compare it to other combat, you know, sports. It's just like, holy shit, you know, you can do whatever you want in that ring and you can make it real as real as you want it, you know. So I'm dealing with a real fucking injury, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sucks, man. I understand, man. I've been there.
It took me a while to come into my own. I mean, I played lacrosse in college, and then I played high school football at a pretty high level. We had a pretty high division high school, and I was on the all-star team and defensive MVP for that. But you know, it took me a while to actually say, oh shit, like I actually have a really good looking body for this, because you know, it's not until your 20s where you can really start putting on weight, you know.
Right.
Like we lifted a lot of weight in high school for football and stuff, but you know, you don't keep that weight on when you're 17, 18. It's like once you get to be about 22, 23, that's when you can actually start building some muscle mass. And I thought, holy shit, I look really good. I'm really flexible, did a lot of hot yoga. That was a big hobby of mine before I got into wrestling, just to kind of counteract with my desk job. I needed something to stay active and stay flexible. So once I started to see my body transform, that's when I started to realize that, you know, maybe I can take this good look that I have, this wonderful legacy, this awesome name that I have, and maybe just reach out to some friends of my dad's and just, you know, see if it's worth getting it. And I didn't know if the business was that lucrative anymore either. I always thought that all the money was made back in the 90s and back in the day. I didn't know that people were still making a good living off wrestling. But as I've seen it, especially with the way Vince has evolved sports entertainment and the way social media and the independent scene especially is booming, I was like, holy shit, it is a gold mine of opportunity right now. So I was like, it's pretty much a no-brainer at that point to get into wrestling and stuff. And I think maybe I went a little too quick at it. I should have maybe laid low for a while and trained some more.
And you trained with Lance Storm, right? Lance Storm was one of your trainers, right?
With the best. Yeah.
What was some of the things you took away from Lance too? Because I mean that's a guy that I've such incredible respect for as a worker. I mean, one of the great in-ring performers and a guy who, you know, did everything from the small promotions when they were still in some sort of territorial things from Canada, and then also, you know, obviously he did work for the big companies as well. What were some of the things that Storm instilled in you early on in that training?
Well, it's one of the things is Lance, he could do it all. You know what I mean? He might not have been the most charismatic individual, but he could work any style, any which way and everything. And the one thing he really instilled in me was that, like, you don't have to do all the moves like everybody's doing, like all these indie guys trying to get noticed, like doing all these high risk maneuvers. He's like, you don't have to go to that extent. He's like, not everybody can just be Ricochet. You know what I mean? He's like,
no, they can't.
He's like, yeah. He's like, you got a name already. If you have some charisma to back that up. He's like, if you can just be larger than life, then people are going to see less is more in that case, right? Like, you can make the smallest things seem so big and pronounced and powerful. You know what I mean? It's like Hulk Hogan did a fucking leg drop, for crying out loud, and the place went nuts. But nowadays it takes, a triple moonsault just to get somebody to pop out of their seat, because that's what it takes to get over anymore. And so my advantage being over with my family heritage is that I could go out there and maybe get away with doing less and conserve my body a little bit. My dad was known as Flying Brian, and he was considered innovative doing, springboard out the middle of the ropes. Today that's like a fucking clothesline. I mean, if you can't do a springboard today, it's like, oh, like, what are you doing in there? You know what I mean? Like, everybody does one.
But you know what? It's funny, Brian, because you go back and you look at, like Wrestle Kingdom when Jericho and Omega fought. Chris Jericho is one of these guys that he had some big moves in the skill set, but it was always Jericho, and Jericho is always one of my favorite guys because it was his ability to capture your imagination, the psychology of the matches, the things he would do in the ring, the things he would do outside the ring, where it all just works. And for me, and I'll tell you what, it was something we just talked about on the show, when we were doing the WrestleMania weekend recap. People wanted to talk about the Gargano match and all that stuff at the end of NXT with Ciampa, but to me, the match was Aleister Black and Almas, because it was those guys in there telling a story, no frills, no extra stuff, just pure work in the middle of the ring. And to me, that's always like the highest form.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I got to talk to Jericho as well. And when I went and did the podcast with him, and he said, you know what, he's like, you're going to get over the same way I got over. And that's, it's being larger than life. That's constantly evolving and changing up your style and who your character is. It's like, if all you can do is a bunch of moves, then how do you evolve? How do you change if you're just going to go out there and just, that's what you're known for. You know what I mean? You gotta have that charisma. You gotta have that character work, that promo work, and you gotta be able to adapt.
Well, when you're looking for a manager, make sure you call me up, because I'm ready to go, man. I'm going to be ready when you.
with this fucking leg at this point, I'll be the goddamn manager.
No. Well, and you told me you're going to be working on holds and all kinds of stuff during your injury. I hope you work on some of those classic Jericho holds.
I'm trying to keep my mind available with wrestling. Of course, I watch my matches and stuff, and I keep up to date. I got my notebook and stuff, but I think I'm going to do something more invested, something more like a little project. I'm going to do a little encyclopedia, so to speak, of different holds to kind of up my knowledge on in-ring stuff and my chaining and just that mat work, getting out there and just looking like a wrestler. Because at the end of the day, it's a wrestling match, and people forget that.
Right.
People forget that a wrestling match is about breaking down your opponent, wearing them down, working a body part. There's not enough of that anymore. And, I'm a wrestler. My father was a wrestler. That's what, he was known for his technical stuff as well. So, I think I'm going to bring some of that back and keep a little bit of the high flying stuff I do in there. But I want to bring back some technical wrestling, some mat wrestling. And I'm going to start with that, with just building up my knowledge base.
And I'll tell you what, man, I mean, just from talking to you, and I've seen clips of other interviews and stuff that you've done in the last year. And, and even like talking to you now from some of the stuff I saw, like, maybe 6 months ago, it feels like you're just in the right place with everything. And even though this injury is a setback for you, it feels almost like you're looking at it as an opportunity more than a setback. Because if you look at it as a setback, it's going to take its toll on you mentally. But to me, man, you've just got all the right things in the right place. And you're, it seems like I think good things, and I'm rooting for you, man. Not just because of your dad. I'm rooting for you because I think it's an opportunity for good entertainment for us and somebody who it appears has a passion for the business. My last question is, what's your vision for success in this business for you? I mean, I think everybody has a different idea of, the level they want to get to or what they want out of this business. What is it so far that if I said, what's your idea of this is a success for me as a wrestler, as a professional, what do you think that level is for you?
I want to be able to not only support myself, but also support my family and the people that helped me along the way. My Aunt Linda, who took me in when I could no longer live with my mother, when the living conditions were unbearable, that I had to move out, and she came down and bought me a house down here. So maybe one day I can get her a new house and take care of her. And I think to me, that's the level of success, paying off all my debts, my student loans and stuff. And then I can start thinking about ascending higher, into becoming a top guy or something in the wrestling world, and then maybe start pursuing other projects. But to me, it's all about paying back those that have helped me out along the way, and those have helped me bring me up and out of the hood, so to speak, in my younger years. And so because the life I'm living right now is just, it's 900 times better than the life I was living, say 8-9 years ago, so it's just, I can't, like, at this point, I got nothing to lose, you know what I mean? I'm in a good spot, with my family and stuff. So I just want to, I want to succeed, just like, like I said, I went to college. I don't know if I talked about this earlier in the podcast, but went to college and, more or less succeeded at being average. So maybe I can succeed at being more than average. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what, man? It takes the right opportunities and the right timing and the right thing to make somebody realize their potential. And it comes at different times for different people. I never thought I'd end up doing radio and doing the stuff I do. I worked as an actor for 15 years in the business, and I never thought I'd end up training people in something that just because I studied fighting and stuff like that, I never thought I'd be working on that end. So it's funny, like those things that end up opening up for you. And I could tell you, man, you've got two fans in myself and Tim, our hosts here of the show. And I think after this, you're going to have even more fans. And I'm excited for you to get back. And I hope when you're working on those holds, you work on those, like, what was the Jericho list of 1,004 holds, like the Saskatchewan spinning nerve hold or some crazy shit like that, man. Those are my favorite. Yeah. One of my favorite bits, the three-handled family gradunzel. I don't know what that is, man, but it sounds hilarious. But dude, we wish you all the best. Speedy recovery, man. And, if you ever want to hop on, you got something to promote or talk about, we always want to have you on here on In This Ring. And I'm telling you, man, I'm excited. Like, after talking to you, man, I'm excited for these 6 months to go fly by and see that new Brian Pillman Jr. 2.0 is going to be out there, who is accepting and ready for all that stuff that's coming at him. And it looks like he wants to attack it, man. I'm stoked for you, brother.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that.
All right, brother. Thanks for your time. Oh, and where can everybody follow you on Twitter and everything too, social-wise? Let's get that out there too.
Oh, yeah. And if you haven't followed me already, which you probably have, I'm Flying Brian Jr. on Twitter.
That's right. And what are you doing with your time if you haven't followed him already? God, people, come on.
I know. It's crazy. People are wild. Sometimes I see people that are on wrestling. They're like wrestling fans. I'm like, how are they not following me already?
I don't know, man. Well, now they all are. So, and anywhere else on social you want to plug?
Yeah, my Instagram as well. Of course, that's kind of how I got started connecting with people, was on Instagram. So that's a Flying Brian 41.
Nice. Awesome stuff. Brian, thanks again for the time, man. And like we all said, speedy recovery. Keep working on those holds and keep pumping that out there, man, because I think you're the real deal, and I'm excited to see you.
Hey, appreciate that.
I will drive nothing but Mercedes or Rolls Royce. I will go nowhere. I'm a commercial air rider. I will ride in nothing but limousine, and I will make love to nothing but In This Ring.